push the stop button, Mike, okay?
Yep, just push the stop.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. I'd like to call a meeting to order of the Harwich Accessibility Rights Committee. And the first thing we need to do is approve the minutes. All those in favor?
So moved. Second. Yes.
So
No, who
I'm
moved
going to
this?
move, he moved it and I'll second it.
Okay, well, I can second it.
Okay? Excellent. So let's get down to our agenda. And the very first thing is to thank Matt Hart for coming. Would you mind
Yay.
sitting over
I
here?
don't mind at all.
Matt, as you know, but I think it's important to recognize the fact that you were the chair of this committee for how many years?
Well, it was just a couple of years, but I was the chairman of the Waterways for 26 years, and I was on the planning board for 2 terms.
Holy moly.
So
Wow.
that was what I was talking to him about there.
Mhm.
That's a separate issue. I'd be glad to answer any of your questions, but it was the thing that, it was a personal thing. My wife got sick with cancer. I lost her 3 years ago. And she used to harass me. She said, "How much did they pay you for all these studies you wrote?" I retired from IBM.
Oh, okay.
I'm a local, grew up in South Chatham. And it was, I changed the name because I'm also a disabled veteran. I was in the Marine Corps. So that was why I got involved. But the problem was the name, and it didn't attract anybody. But accessibility is, he said, it encouraged people. And what I ran into is the fact that you've got another group of people that are worrying about where the road should be and this type of thing. But they weren't looking at it from a handicap accessibility. And not just for handicapped people, it's children, adults, and things like that. And they haven't fixed a damn thing. And they've done other things. There's still a problem, which is a big, I think you got it, I did it with all the pictures and all this thing
Yeah.
shows it. By the library and out here still isn't a problem. What happened is the state said for small towns, they were gonna come up with a grant. And in this thing, we've got all the estimates and things like that for doing projects like this. But first, you had to do an assessment. So I had to go before town meeting to get approval for the money to do the assessment. Now, the grant that the state was talking about said that before you can apply for this grant, you have to complete the other one. We went through an enormous thing and had a group of people that came here that did a great job for the study and the grant. We put together this, and then they gave it to, I think it was Roxbury, which is not a small community. And I said, well, where did they do the study? Oh, we gave them a waiver. I mean, I put 2 years in this damn thing.
my gosh.
My wife was not, I was married, by the way, for 53 years.
Oh, gee.
Anyhow, I said enough. And Larry was around, the other selectmen understood. I said, I'm getting out of this. This is crazy. And I think since then, they're looking back at this, the state, if it's for a small community, it has to stay for a small community, not because you happen to know somebody in the state house. As I said to you before, I was very much involved. I was the chairman of the Waterways along with John Rendon, who was the harbor master. Super guy. We worked very well together. And we were successful in getting grants.
Yeah.
I mean, as I told you,
Very
they
successful.
weren't going to fix Witchmere. I mean, what had happened is the dock had completed, and we got a grant that replaced the whole thing for nothing. And that's for the commercial fleet, which I'm thrilled for the town. But I was being naive, assuming that if I complied with everything like we did with Waterways, we'd get a good chance. And I got blasted.
So we're talking about 2 different things. You're chairing the waterways and then you're chairing Hark.
Yeah, but what I'm using is the experience I had of going after grants. You got another lady just came in.
Yep, well, she's part of the committee.
Okay. Hi. Relax, no harm. I can remember running many meetings in this room. I was just using that as a comparison. I thought our experience of going after a grant, complying with it, showing the need, this type of thing, like we did with the harbors. Well, I didn't know, when you went after handicap, you got a whole different group of people. They still send me stuff from the state, want me to come up to these different sessions, but I haven't gone. My concern at that time, we were talking about a 3-part project in the town of Harwich, primarily looking at Harwich Center. Now, I'll go back, we were also looking for funds to go from Snow Inn Road to Saquatucket. Somebody's gonna get clipped there sooner or later. Especially, you got the sun in the morning coming at you this way and the sun. And the state hit us there, said, oh, and I think you were part of it, oh, you gotta have sidewalks on both sides and a bike path. Well, there just isn't enough real estate on that hill where it goes down.
Correct.
I think we've still got some money that's been set aside already.
Yeah, so you can hear me, I can add to that. We did pass, on that subject, a couple things have happened. One is that the state has backed off a little bit in requiring that we have sidewalks on each side of the road now. As some of you may remember, that was a big deal for us at Long Pond, that we basically blocked it because of doing all this. And we also now, on the subject that Matt is referring to, going from Harwich Port Center down to Saquatucket.
Well, it was Saquatucket in the next road.
Next road,
So you
well, I'm
go out,
hoping we get there.
So you go to the beach.
I know.
Right. The original,
I'm on there.
I'm still pushing for that. The original push is now for Saquatucket, and I'm not giving up on it. It needs to be extended.
So,
Yeah,
not
it
even
does.
an eighth of a mile.
Right.
But, oh boy, the guy who owns that Cape Roots,
Manning,
Right.
Mr. Paul Manning.
Paul Manning, and he's been at some of our meetings, I should remember him. He's donated $250,000 to help fund that. And we feel we got some town money at the last Springtown meeting for additional funding. And the state has moved from a position of saying you can't do it, which was because of what Matt said. They continued on for some time, is now saying, well, we can, but we don't have money, this being the state. But they have agreed to help us in some of the regulatory issues. And so I think we're pretty comfortable, and we're hoping to do that in the next few years. So Matt was pushing that hard and got it almost there, but it's all the Matt and the committee did all the legwork and got us going with it. So in case, that's what I
Okay,
can add.
thank you. On the, why I'm here, we looked at the Harwich Center situation as 3 projects. High school to the library, down the center of the road here at Harwich Center, and then going to the old high school. Now, in all fairness, the old high school sidewalk is usable, doesn't meet the criteria. None of it does as far as handicap. There was some blatant problems, for instance, the crosswalk in the back of this building is in the wrong place in relation to the door. They were great to come down and tell us all the things that were wrong with Harwich, but not help us. The concern that I have, and I lost track, maybe you people know, they did some work in Harwich in redoing the parking spaces and things like that. Because the way people motor through the town, we wanted to have something to slow down, either 2 traffic lights or a traffic light at this end, and at least one for the crosswalk. The other thing that we didn't like is next to the library, on this side, they put this red brick stuff. You used to have, you'd go up in the 2 lanes. If you're gonna turn left, you were here, now they got 1,
Yeah.
and sometimes it backs all the way up.
It does. I'm there like 5 times a day.
Yeah. And somebody's gonna get clipped because people get frustrated and they gun that way. Something's gotta be done to slow them down over where the crosswalk is. Now, what's crazy, the sidewalk starts on one side of the road and comes up and it crosses, then back, and then you're right at the bike path where they cross. That's asking for a problem. The other thing, and I see that Link is taking care of it, they've got to really clip back the hedges on either side of the bike path. Because school bus and kids going out, you don't see that road,
Right.
or somebody's there.
Are you talking about Oak Street?
Oak Street.
Yeah.
Basically, what we came down to were a lot of little things. Now, the sidewalk from the school and through Howard Center is a composite of over 50 years being put together. A lot of it you could trip over, others area you can't. We weren't really talking about dynamically changing it. It's a matter of putting it back up to compliance. And that's where the disability group out of Boston, oh, this one isn't wide enough. I mean, the sidewalk that goes down the other side of Oak Street for part of the way is nowhere near compliance. The sidewalk that's over here after the academy goes up and over. It's, I mean,
Yeah.
at least it's there.
Right.
And you try and get people to go through that. So I understand what you're going through. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions, but we weren't trying to do anything that was that dynamic. There's always the problem of money. Working with Link, a lot of it can be done, now that you're talking one, by the highway department. And they do it a lot better and a lot cheaper in many ways. But these guys gotta figure out how to get around the bidding. I mean, you gotta have it's gotta be allowed by the highway department. I like the idea of doing with the black pavement. It's inexpensive, it's easy to shovel. The trouble with the concrete, it seems to lift and crack in many places, especially out here. But what I was fighting for, and I'm repeating myself, was at a minimum a flashing yellow light or at the crosswalk, but there should be a button there that they push to stop it. In other words,
Here at the library.
Yeah,
At the
we're-
library.
by the gas station.
At a minimum, it would be a traffic light that when you push to go across,
Sure.
it becomes, and flashes the rest of the time.
Pedestrian crossing, yeah.
And over here, get the 2 lanes again on this side of the library, so you've got a right turn, a left turn.
Yeah.
You've got the problem over here where the exchange hall used to be. I don't really know what you can do, but I think a traffic light would be better. You know, just a green light and a go light, but that involves, you know, whose road is it, and all this type of thing.
So right now, I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to make sure I understand what you mean. You mean at 124 where you take the left or right, coming down 124 by Seal Restaurant? And you're suggesting a light there? Yeah.
Now, what we were looking at would have been great if there was enough room for 2 lanes.
Yeah.
But the church, and the sidewalk on that side, and where they put the sidewalk when they did the park for the exchange hall, it kind of came out the road. You could do it physically, but I don't think you get the money or the engineering. But at a minimum, if there was a traffic light there, you know,
I completely agree. Does
I'll
anybody
get-
else travel that
the other
road?
The other thing that I don't understand is where Queen Anne crosses out here, why they don't have a right, an arrow going right. It says, do not go through you can't go ahead at a red light. But the trucks and everything are backing up all the way down Queen Anne Road toward the dump. Queen Anne, where it crosses.
Yes,
Right.
okay.
If they let a car come up and allow it to turn right, the reason they're not is because there's cars. But if they had a traffic light there with an arrow, you'd get rid of some of the people that want to turn right. You've got a bunch of people coming up there that want to get in the Mid-Cape Highway, and pretty soon it gets backed up a quarter mile. That's completely out of the Howard Center area. But it was those little things we said, okay, we don't have the money, and you know, if you did, you'd make it look like someplace in Texas or Florida or something like that, but we don't have the money here. But and I was involved indirectly in front of the Catholic Church in Route 28. They waited until somebody got killed. The person got slammed by a car. Well, that's a hell of a way to buy a traffic light, but they found a way to do it. I'm amazed that along here we haven't had the problem. I guess you could hold off on the sidewalk going to the high school for a while, and they could maintain that. But the critical stuff is right around here. And they got to slow down the traffic somehow going that way. And it's, I mean, they're coming in too, in town. If there was a light that they could see that was kind of, maybe they'd slow down a little bit.
Great.
And
Can I ask, the study that you were involved in, which is amazing, do you consider that that is still relevant, that the problems identified there are still problems?
Yes.
So we should be looking at that. And I had a little trouble understanding it, just because, there we go. I had to cut and paste this, it's the only way I could put it together.
Good job.
Well, I only have the first 4 pages now, so, but things are numbered 1 to 4, 5, 6, it's 1 to 4 and 5.
Well,
I want
these
what
are
they
all the things.
signify.
I got you a great solution. What I did is I cut out the section to write it for
Oh,
you.
I have that.
That this is
Wait,
trying to follow through this. This had to follow state compliance.
Right.
And you have to use the correct wording and everything, and it's very confusing. But this is for you people to have here. I thought you might want to look at some of it. And this goes back to, it hasn't changed.
Right.
I got it in here somewhere. So that's the one with the photos and talking about Harwich Center. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Okay.
To answer your question, the areas that we outlined were Oak Street intersection
Mm-hmm.
and the intersection with going out to out to the Mid-Cape Highway. Those were the real problems.
Okay. So then, the numbers that you have on these sheets, what do they represent?
Well,
The
if you look,
numbers in the left-hand column.
well, if you look at the, for instance, community center is listed 4 or 5 times. Okay, what you have here is what the group that we hired to do the assessment, they came up with these conclusions.
Okay.
Now, what I sent you was the committee's information. For instance, community center, the curb ramp, it says in the next, so what that, it breaks it down that way. Then you've got community center, off-street parking list, or garage. And they went, and they did this, and you'll see other ones, they also did a similar thing for this building. And out and back, the parking areas and the crosswalk are in the wrong place.
So do those numbers represent an order in which they think,
The-
in the far left column, think they should be done? Or, I can see that they list priorities, of course, everything's priority 1. But
They're not recommending that they should or should not be done. They're saying they are not
That these are-
coordinating with a disability requirement. They do
Okay.
not meet
Okay.
the ADA requirements.
Not in compliance, yeah.
That's not in compliance.
That's
Okay.
not a priority list, this is just a list of the stuff we gotta do.
It's not.
Well, it does, it
They do
has
give
the
a priority
priority.
list as well.
It does,
Some of
Right.
them really
Some
bad.
are prioritized.
Right.
yeah,
But I think part of the issue at the time when Matt was putting it together, following the requirements, it seemed like you were being forced to have to repeat the same sections over and over again in different, which makes it confusing too, because they'll show up one place and all of a sudden, basically the same narrative shows up somewhere else. To meet the
Depends what they're
submittal
looking.
requirements.
If one section might be a crosswalk, another might be access to the beach or something. So it was all the same place, but they made them separate categories.
And so that's confusing as well, so you have, so I think the list is a good start though, because it does list them all. And then, just to add to that, then I think, I agree with Matt, they're also needed, but now it gives you a chance to relook at the priorities based on what you see now and what the money situation is.
And also what we can do for grants.
What you can do for grants, exactly.
The problem Matt had, he had such a positive experience with the harbors And then he goes for this, and it's like, sorry, pal, you're not even in the game. And that's a tough place to be.
Well, I went to many sessions, you're right. Like I said, I'm disabled. I was in a helicopter crash. And it really surprised me how many you go to these meetings, and they really don't care about the disabled. The public meetings up in Boston.
Right.
One time they came down and had a session, the whole group in Chatham for
Yeah.
everybody in the Cape, and they had it in the old high school where I graduated. And the guy more or less told me, "Oh, sit down." I said, "Wait a minute, I'm here and you're a part of," "Yeah, but we look for priorities." And I said, "Well, why was it that this other community didn't comply with your Well, we gave them a waiver." Why? I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
And this is, this former Marine wanted to punch him out, I'll tell you. I said, "This is crazy. I'm trying to help some people that are in wheelchairs or have trouble
Right.
walking, and you're giving me a load of crap." And this, and that's why I got so fed up with it. And it's not a priority. What they're doing is they're taking the money that was meant for this and they're putting it over here.
Yeah.
I never did find out what they used the money for up in West Roxbury. I mean, they could probably lose it for 1,000 things, but that's not a small community. It says in this thing that this was for less than 10,000 or something like that, the population. And then they come back, "Well, look at your population, the summertime goes up." Well, wait a minute, yes. What do you want, so we don't comply with this. I wish you luck, because the problem I had is when it came down to getting something, it go away, this type of thing. I can't do this anymore. I mean, this is, so when Larry called me, I thought he was gonna say, "Do you wanna go back in the committee?" No more.
Well, I knew better not to push that.
And then he said, "Look, we're gonna try and divide it and find money from the town to do it." And what happens in many of those cases, all of a sudden you're doing, and what everybody else would consider a little thing will come up and say, "Oh," like you said, "this person will come up with $200,000. Well, the only reason we can do that is because you tell them in the public thing, "Hey, we need help doing this."
Right.
There are people in this town, and I'm one of them, I guess, that would contribute something to fix these two areas. Because I've almost been clipped a couple times.
I agree.
I mean, I'll give you another example. I live over in Queen Anne Road. And if you know where, it's at the corner of Samoset. What's the road just before? I can't.
John Joseph.
John Joseph, yeah, I complained to you about it. If you go on John Joseph from 39 and stop, and you want, there's a hill there.
Yeah, you can't see.
Right.
They're doing 60 miles an hour. I don't go that way. I've was hit a couple times. When I'm leaving, I'll go that way, because my house is just up the corner. But they come over that, now I'm right on Queen Anne. And why Queen Anne has 3 different speed limits, I don't know. They tell me because that was when they did it was back in the 50s. Well, back in the 50s, they had thank you ma'am, so you could go, all the roads up there. I bought the house in 71. And I like the police chief, but the previous police chief, I said, "Well, why don't you stop some of the people?" He said, "Very simple. We stop somebody, that person gets a ticket, they go to court, we've got to take that policeman to testify in the court. Now we've got to hire somebody to take his position, and the judge says, 'You won't do that again, will you?' And they dismiss it. And he said, we can't afford, the town can't afford every time somebody gets a speeding ticket that they're not going to get fined for it." Now, the other thing it doesn't mean, do you realize that half the proceeds from people violating parking in a handicapped space are supposed to come to the town?
No.
You know the last time the town got any? Nobody knows.
Where is the money going then?
Who knows? The regulation says it's supposed to go to half goes to the community. Now, how did I find out
I
about
didn't
this?
know that.
I found out about this, for instance, on my other side, of the money that is drawn from moorings. Half of it is controlled by the harbor master for expenditures he didn't expect. Instead of having come to the town the selectmen say, hey, I need $200,000. So it works out. But we only found out about that because we were looking for some other things. Want to know something even worse? When was the last time somebody in Harwich got a ticket for parking illegally in a handicap? They don't have a record of it. And there's a lot of violations. You know, I love it over at Stop and Shop. They put like 8 lots for people to come and pick up groceries, and they got 2 lots for handicap.
Well, we have that on the agenda
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
if you want, like, to, now, I have a question for you,
Sure.
and I hope no one minds me jumping in here.
Did
The
I
last-
answer this lady's questions?
Yes, I believe you did.
Don't feel, I'll be glad to. I'm awful shy, I know, but I'll be glad to.
Also, I'm relatively new to Harwich, so
Okay.
I'm trying to play catch up here.
Well, I can sympathize with you. When I was in the planning board, one time I was getting upset with a person, and he said, well, I'd like this town to be the way it was in 1971. And I said, I'd like it to be the way it was in 1944, but it ain't gonna happen. I'll sit down. But I got a reputation when I was the planning board. I'd let you talk and you talk. If you try to talk 2 more times, I said, no, the next guy gets, sit down. And we got a lot done. We got 12 things through the town meeting, and one of them was the DCPC. I'm sorry, I talked too much.
No, you don't. I'm thrilled you're here. The last time this committee met, a gentleman by the name of Sean Libby had what I thought was a brilliant idea. He took the priority list with him, and he was going to go through it and check off what the high priorities were, so that we would know, truthfully, what we're doing. I thought he would be here today. He was invited here today. I'll get back. I reached out to him.
And I'll follow up as well. He was good, that was one thing he was going to do, but he was also going to check off the things that had been done.
And check off the things that had been done. And that, for me, made perfect sense.
I'm glad you said that, because the disability committee went kind of overboard in a couple of years. They wanted to have special walkways across the beach, and they wanted us to get those great big tired chairs. And I thought that's fine. But what we're talking about is accessibility primarily. The sidewalks, the roads, and the buildings. Those are great ideas. I think they prioritize them as something high. I don't know if anybody's complaining they can't get in the water at Bank Street.
That's an issue that this committee has already discussed, and we're on it, but that's also on our agenda
Well,
today.
I wish I could have talked to Sean. If you took the list, I say, okay, these are priorities and these are like to have. And it's,
Yeah, so for me, that was making sense to me. And I'd like to go ahead with that.
Yeah, no, I'd like to, forgive me, Matt, I do want to put a little bit of a positive spin on your grant activity previously. Because my memory is that with all the hours you spend on that, you did find a cohort and the Boston staff that was very good and helped you through all that. And I think you still need to look at those issues because they did provide a lot of help. And I think when it got to the formal committee of making rewards, then it became political, and I know bets were off. But until it got to that political realm, up to that, so I would not give up on going after grants, thinking at least you get to that step, and then maybe we're unsuccessful that time, but maybe Sarah can help us, some others can help us get through that political barrier.
but you're right. I'm guilty. I should have gotten Sarah involved in the beginning when we started this thing.
Well, that was my point on that. My point is they did provide help from the staff side. We got bogged down with that. So the state is willing to help us. You know, obviously we got beat out from the political side at the end.
Right.
But my point being is, let's not give up on the grant stuff. Because,
Especially now that potentially there's infrastructure money that will be somehow through the county, through the state, we don't know.
And I want to get to that under old business.
The money that comes with the grants comes from the government, federal government.
That's a federal infrastructure bill, right?
And it comes in every year. It's how they divide it where it's crazy.
Yeah, that's,
All right. I'm
well,
sorry.
my only point is I didn't want to be completely discouraged. I don't want to give up on And that'll be later on your agenda too, when we talk about.
Yeah. Would you like to continue, or would you like
I'm
to
gonna keep
stay with
quiet.
us?
I'll answer questions.
So we might have questions that come up. Does anyone else have any questions right now? Because I'd like to continue with the agenda, and then we can pop the questions.
I have one
If
question.
it would be nice to stay.
Did you internally do the grants, or did you hire an outside agency?
We had to get an outside agency
Yeah.
that was familiar with a disability impact.
Oh, okay.
And that's, I think we had,
Was it Allison Boyd, did she give that, or was it?
no, she just recommended who would do it.
Okay,
Allison Boyd, the Boyd people said, that's a little beyond us. And I think we had 3 to select from, and then we took it to selectmen, and we got the bid and what,
Yeah.
no, because that was part of the requirements. They had
Right.
to show they had experience in this. And there's a lot out there.
And also, they know the grant business,
yeah.
Yeah.
so they know who, as
Which
opposed
is
to who.
critical.
Yes,
It's like witchcraft,
Yeah.
writing grants.
The Boyd people had helped us with the Harvard.
Okay.
yeah, they really know the grant.
Okay, so moving along here on the agenda, will you reach out to Sean to see if we
I
can
will.
have him come to the next
I will.
meeting?
I'll do
Great.
that for you.
You would?
Yeah.
Thank you, okay. I appreciate that, Larry. Okay, when I was at the selectmen meeting, one of the selectmen wanted us to look at the fact that the lines in the local supermarkets need to be addressed, in that someone on the committee needs to speak to the manager of Star Market and Shaw's to make sure those lines are in compliance, because Don Howe feels they are not. So I need someone to volunteer to go,
When you say lines, what?
the handicap lines. You know how you have the parking spot and then you have the, what I call the
Yeah,
horizontal
yeah,
line,
yeah.
so the van can get out of a car and shoot down into that area.
The width of the parking space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I've been looking at it, but I wanted someone to just take that on to go and meet with the manager.
Do we, before somebody meets with a manager, it'd be helpful to have the information on specifications for what is supposed to be there.
Exactly, so that's why the next agenda item is accessibility complaint procedure, which would have
Okay.
everything to do with, are those lines in compliance? So the two things go hand in hand.
Okay.
And Ginny Hewitt called me about it, said she had whatever you need. I called her back, I did not hear back from her. So you know her, would you mind?
Well, I know her slightly, but I also know that her assistant director has just handed in her resignation. So
Okay.
Jenny was probably under a little strain.
Yeah, Ellen, who's the assistant town librarian, left to take over the library system at the middle school. So she's staying in Harwich, but gives her a chance to be full librarian, I guess, rather than assistant librarian.
Okay, so those two things go hand in hand, and I'd like someone to try and do it in the next month so that we could then bring it up as an agenda item. So could someone please volunteer to do that?
Are you looking at me?
I am looking at you, Steve.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do
Thank
it.
you. Steve, I really.
That's if he'll talk about that. A lot of times they bump that up.
Who do you mean by they?
At Shaw's, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they bump that up to they're not in charge. They have a holding company that actually owns their property, and they're responsible.
Oh, I see.
Well,
Most
good
of
for
the
you that
grocery
you even
stores.
know that, but at least
Yes.
let's get the ball rolling, so next month we'd have a little information
And also, what
on
is
that.
the width that it's supposed to be? I know there's a range,
So the
but,
accessibility complaint procedure.
Yep.
So if you could bring that back to us, thank you so much.
But that's a good point, they may not know what the requirements are.
I can get you an address that can give you
Sure.
all of the requirements.
Yeah.
This is the gentleman you're talking about
Okay.
that I do in Boston, that's his job.
Okay.
Can you send that to Steve then? If he-
If you give me something to send it to.
Okay,
this is your piece of paper? I'll write it on there.
thank you. So the next thing, once again, is the select board meeting that we made our presentation
Matt.
of where Hark is. And we've requested additional members to our committee, and I hope you all agree with that. because today there's really just 4 of us. So I just wanted to bring that up. And are you the person that could do that?
Well, I requested at that meeting, we put it on the agenda. I followed up and, because we have a special town meeting next week and then we have a busy agenda after time, I think the meeting after that will be on the agenda,
On your agenda?
on the selectmen's agenda. Because this committee is it's not a, the composite of this committee is set by the town, it's not set by the state. So we can do it as Board of Selectmen, it's actually Selectmen's Committee.
Mhm.
So we can do it, we being the selectmen, we can increase the size of it ourselves.
Okay,
And so I don't think it'll be a big discussion.
so probably
Because
maybe,
before we go back, Eileen looked into it, it actually at one point was 9 members, and then it was reduced to 7, and then reduced to 5 because we couldn't get enough members. Now, we've had, we've had other people apply for this. I interviewed someone a week or so ago that's interested, and said, well, hang on, I think we're going to expand it. So,
Okay.
Matt, I think it was decreasing your time because you couldn't get enough members to make it.
We lost out a lot of meetings. We'd be there and we'd have 1 person show. We had to have 4.
Yeah, we had 7 for a lot of that. so
We
need
got it
4
down
members.
from 7 and then 4.
So I'm going to propose that we move it back up to 7. I think we have enough interest now.
good.
Because that's been the limiting factor. It's not been this, selectmen want to just decrease the size or whatever.
Well, you bring up a good point, McMay. When we changed the name to accessibility, it drew more interest.
What was the name?
Just, it's just,
It was handicap, the
disability. Disability Act, well, ADA is American Disability Act.
American Disability,
And we just copied that.
and people misunderstood it wasn't just direct disability, a wheelchair or something like that. It affected anybody that had, you need accessibility, a child, and that was, I think, the last year. I was starting to get more interest. Oh, I'd like to come about this type of thing. So I think that's probably why there's some interest. Great.
But in any case, so that'll be on the agenda coming up.
Excellent.
It won't
Okay.
happen next week, it'll happen next month.
Okay. So should I put it back on the agenda for November, just to see where you are, or should I wait till December?
Put it on first week, wait for December.
Great. I'm glad I asked. Thank you. Okay. Eileen, would you like to give us an update on grants? On your grant and all the work you did? It was phenomenal.
Oh, well, thank you for that. I don't really have much information to tell because my, as you know, that my computer fried right in the middle of all of that. And I got some material to Megan.
I'm only happy that it happened to people other than myself.
It's very, yes. Just to bring you up to speed, that I was poking around in the internet and I saw this mass.gov opportunity. And we had 10 days to try and put something together. And so I did a whole lot of writing because I'm used to writing a proposal from scratch. But then when I finally got to talk to Megan, they wanted it in, they had a format, it was like a form, electronic form.
Don't say anything.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but anyway, so I mean, I had written pages of stuff, like a proposal usually is, that I've done before. Anyway, so I got the material, some material to Megan, and since that point, I have no idea what has happened. And Megan's not here this week. And I emailed and I talked to Ellen Powell and said, do you know anything about this? And I have no idea
I did,
whatsoever.
go ahead.
Well, in the meantime, I had to speak to Ellen Powell about other business last week, and Megan came out.
Oh, okay.
And so I wanted to report that to the committee about what she said. And what she said was, what you were doing was fantastic, and we need more time with it. And she would like to apply for that grant next year, so that we can work together to put all the
Sure.
information together. She was very excited about it, but she said we just didn't have enough time.
Well, that's true. We didn't have enough time.
And we need a lot of information, and how honorable you were to even make an incredible stab at it, but let's wait. So,
Okay.
and she thought she was going to be here, and then Ellen just got me and said, could I report about the conversation that I had had with Megan?
Okay, sure.
I had the same conversation, because I talked to Megan one of those times, and she could have submitted the information you had, but she knew there was enough gaps to be rejected.
Yes, yeah.
And so, with all the work you've done, I repeat what you said, it makes a lot of sense to have our ducks in a row, get everything together.
Fully
Because
agree, yeah.
One of my pet peeves with this federal and state government, I guess, is that they tend to notify us on Monday that there's a grant available on
True.
Friday.
Yes.
And, it's crazy stuff.
But-
So we get everything she'll finish what she's doing, as you said, we'll get it in our, we'll have a file, so next time it comes up, we'll be ready to submit. Because she needed to get some more information, wasn't available yet.
And I don't mind working on that stuff now to try and get things, in some format that, when something comes up and you have to respond quickly, you've got the
very
stuff there.
stressful.
Especially where we have some data on things that need to be done. The other thing, though, when you were talking earlier, it's been my experience in the past that generally on grant things like this, you have to have somebody on the other end shepherding it along. And they have loads of people, like in the State House, that, they always seem to be like 23 years old and male and, want to know who you are and whatever. Just get somebody like that to go in, each week and say, where is it? Or what is happening? Or not every week, maybe every couple of weeks, to go in and kind of shepherd it along. Because sometimes it just is on a shelf. Could be a great idea and well written, but unless you're really having somebody push for that. And so I don't know, because I just got here in May, and I don't know enough of the politic around here, if there are people that can push those kind of things, or just, it's a phone call, is there anything new about the project that we submitted, or, has, Phil, somebody or other, seen it, or something like that, and that really brings it forward.
How did you make your connection?
Well, I was just thinking the same person I'm gonna get for Steve, he'll come down here and talk to you. And he's in charge of ADA projects in Boston. He was the gentleman who was helping with me. And that's who you need, what you need. You call and say, hey, who do we go to? And he'll push it along and find out if it's delayed. Lots of times it drives you crazy. They'll have some other reason, they'll delay the
Yeah.
and, I'm not under the gun, I got another 2 months. Let me get the information back to Steve and introduce you to this guy. He's constantly contacting me, did I want to go to this session or that session? I said, I'm not in it.
So he is still active.
Oh, yeah, he's very active.
Good.
Steve,
And they're upset that small communities don't get involved.
Yeah,
because
we're ignored.
They're ignored.
We're ignored.
And he's trying to help in that.
Can I ask, what was the grant, what project it was a grant aimed at?
It was accessibility of any kind, and it was mass.gov. And they'd had very little information other than, submit your project. And we started to write towards that. And they didn't have limit on an amount or anything, that they just said, give us your best stuff and do it by X date, and
September 30th, is that correct?
I know, it wasn't September, was it September? Yeah, it was September 30th, something like that. And we were like 10 days out, and, we just started.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. Well, and part of the problem is that, I can write all that stuff, but, I don't know the politic here as much as Megan knew that. And, or you know, I'm not originally, well, I'm not originally from Massachusetts, but, you know, sometimes it's easier with grants like that when it's put on the desk of somebody. Although this one was, as Megan pointed out, there was like a format on, it's an online submission, which was great. And, you know, and I just sort of fed information to her about that, and hopefully, you know, next time it'll go in somewhere or
If I
another.
could, I can explain why what they do is when they're about, they spread them out. Okay, how'd this person do an item one, item one, item one? They want them all the same of the way you answer, and that's how they evaluate. Sometimes I get
So-
bored, but.
Did you include finances? I mean, in terms of, were you asking for a specific amount of money?
There was no, in the data that was sent out to communities, there wasn't any limits to that. And when I talked to Megan early on in the process, she was looking to submit approximately $100,000. And so we did not even get to the point of saying, okay, I forget how many I had written up. What was it, 6 things on there?
Yeah.
And it hadn't costed them out at that point in time. You know, my computer crashed and still not back working well.
I think that was another limiting factor from Megan's perspective. Was
Yeah.
trying to get a rough estimate of what the, she wanted to tie it to something, but
Yeah,
the request
Yeah.
was for.
but we can look for some more. I mean, there's stuff out there, not only just at this.
There's a lot. Some of
Yeah.
them, the town has to contribute a piece. but
Yes.
A lot of them they don't.
Sure. There's lots of things at the state level, but there's also national level and organizations, you know, like disability commissions and that kind of stuff. So they post them on a regular basis. So we'll continue to write, and one of these days, oh, I have that, you know, I know that's page 15.
Thank you so much.
Well,
We'll just keep on going and submit it next year.
hopefully, or earlier than that, than next
Or,
summer.
you know, to get that.
Because there is stuff out there, and I'll keep looking around.
You're talking, there was an article in the Cape Cod Times recently about Barnstable giving out 1.14 million.
Oh, we like that.
To 2 towns. And this is our American Rescue Plan money, I believe. Now, I don't know if, I mean, this also had a deadline of September 30th. I have no idea if this will be a repeat grant or if they're just using up, because what they got was, I believe, just a one-time thing from
This was a
the
one-time
federal.
grant, but
Yeah.
there's a second one coming up.
Oh,
And I forget the timing of it, but there's a second version of that was okay by it's going through the county, you know, it's fed to the
Yeah,
county.
yeah.
The first one was doesn't matter, they gave the state like, thinking $10 million. In any case, that one's done, but there's another one coming up. And that will be, Megan can look at that, because that will go directly through the town to the,
sure.
presumably it'll come back to the town and give us some options how we want to spend the money.
Okay.
Those are federal monies administered by the county down to the towns, right?
Yes.
Right.
Federal, state.
Yep.
Federal, state, county.
But the county has and we had
But the
to,
county made the decision on some priorities that they were gonna spend the money on.
Yeah.
Wastewater was housing, it
Yep.
was, you know.
Yeah.
So it was like a philosophical debate. Now this is the first one, now there'll be a second one
Right.
coming. But supposedly the county will probably give us a chunk of money and say it's up to the towns how we want to spend it. So that's a
Oh.
good discussion, because that would be up to us
Sure.
to convince the, you know, that we need to spend money on accessibility,
Mhm.
addition other stuff. Plus, we're talking for small money compared to everything else.
Yeah. When I saw that one community was getting more than $1 million. I thought, well, be nice to know more about it.
Well, they wanted to give me these towns, in the end, it ended up being largely based on population.
Yeah, and it sounds
In that game, we
also,
always lose out to, the Hyams obviously fell.
Sure, yeah.
I shouldn't say lose out, they get more.
Is there anything else you wanted to say, Lynn, about?
no, let me see what I can do about looking into what the
Yeah,
next
that'd be great.
round is. Contact the county and see what's happening.
Is there somebody inside this, building that sort of watches for that, or?
Megan will be watching that, she's a good one, so she'll.
Oh,
be-
okay.
Yeah, keep in touch with Megan,
Okay.
she'll know what's going on, closer than I will.
Do you want me to do that while you're working on the other grant, or?
I'm not working on a grant right now that I know of.
I just don't want us beleaguering Megan if we're both
Sure.
calling about the same thing.
Good point, yeah.
I'd be happy to make the contact.
Okay. I'll just kind of scout out on the internet and see who's got, doing what, and, which would be good. But if we get,
Minimum grant. I think
makes it easier to know
Minimum
what you're
design.
really going after in terms of, is it the parking space markings versus,
yeah.
And this is
'Cause
gonna
there's
take a
enough-
while.
yeah, because and knowing how much that stuff costs. Because that was one of the issues that I was trying to get Megan to talk with her about. Because, I don't know, what it costs to fix a sidewalk or something like that, so.
Scott?
And signage and, for instance, like Matt was talking, lights, that could
Right.
come under a traffic type grant, but it's also accessibility
Sure.
and safety.
Safety.
So,
Link can help you an awful lot. He's
Sure, yeah.
He's very helpful.
Well, he talked, when he was here before, he talked about things that he saw that needed to be done. In fact, there were some things that he felt needed to be redone. So that's kind of where I started, sending stuff Megan's way, because, I don't know how to cost those things out. I just
So-
$1 million for that.
For that particular grant, then, as time keeps on going by, we'll have you, if you don't mind, connecting with her on, okay, what do I do next? And then we have the other grant that you're gonna look into about the Barnstable County
Yeah.
Award. And I'll get the name of that, the agenda for next
There-
month, so we can just kind of keep on talking about it, okay. I have Eric Beebe on here, and I know, Matt, you had said something about beaches and when you were talking. But this committee has looked into beaches and the accessibility of our town beaches and lifeguards and Moby mats. And I contacted him again to see if he could come to a meeting. I have not heard back from him. So I'm going to take that upon myself to see if we can get him here. Because I have questions for him. I know the committee did too.
I was
So
down the beach the other day and somebody swept those things off.
No way.
Yeah, there's one of the things had 4 inches of sand on top of it. You couldn't see the thing to walk on, but I was surprised they had swept it off. No, there was one area that was still tilted,
Glad
but
we know that, but I wanted,
swept.
I'd like to have him just come in so we can ask him
It's
those
interesting you
questions.
mentioned that, because one of the things that survey that they did is at Long Pond, there wasn't a handicap accessible bathroom.
oh,
And that's a big violation.
sure.
And it has something to do with the capacity, because you've got 2 parking lots over there at Long Pond.
Yeah.
So how you gonna, but they do have them at the one that's halfway down the pond. They had other restrooms, so I never thought about it until they reminded me.
Mhm. Because Red River Beach, they are accessible, and nice and wide, a lot of room there. Okay, so is that all right if I continue with my request with Eric? And I just put old business, the report to the Board of Selectmen, because our committee met, I think, on September 13th, and I had to give the report on September 19th, and thank you, Eileen, again, for coming with me to that meeting. And I sent all of you the report, I just hope you got it, and I just wanted to bring it up for this meeting.
You did a very good job, by the way.
Yeah.
Some people panic in front of the selectmen, so you did good.
I haven't looked at it. A few people
You
have
did-
told me that, and I
you
said,
did
thank
good.
you, I do not want to look at it at all. Next step, specific urgent ADA compliant items. That had everything to do with Sean coming today, so we knew what the urgent were and what already had been done. So we're going to get back to Sean Libby again to get him in here. Okay? Great. And again, I have on a next step additional guests, and those people, we talked about Mike Locke coming in. He's he's been in charge of conservation for years in this town. Do we want to speak to him at all because of the Cold Brook Preserve? Apparently, that's becoming, I read about it quite often, how they're going to be putting some accessible trails in there. So I thought it'd be neat to have him come.
Sure, and they can
Committee?
tell us what they have done and what they're working on.
Exactly.
Yeah. They have done a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So that was my last agenda item, and I will again put Eric Beebe, hopefully come next time. Great.
I remember when, one of my last meetings, we had to have this discussion about the dog cemetery.
Oh, gee.
Oh, gee.
Oh, it went on forever.
Everybody just went,
I said, how many-
Don't bring it up.
I know,
I said,
no.
how many- we just let it pass.
Contentious and emotional issue.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness gracious. I would never have done that.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, I know.
I'm bringing up.
It's humorous now, but it was,
Wasn't it?
we were there for a while.
Intense, yeah.
That's what she was looking for, is our endorsement. I said, why would we handicap and do us that? Well, I think I've got to get back. I'm in the process of Anderson is putting in 5 windows and doors.
Oh, nice.
They'll like it.
Well, the house was built in '68, it had to happen, you know.
Still single pane windows.
Well, I face south, so they're high E.
Oh, yeah.
I went the whole way, because I rented the other apartment. The front of my house just gets sun all day. You
Yeah.
should see my former lawn. I found out how much the water level went down in our reserve. An 1/8 of an inch, for God's sakes. Well, nice to meet
Thank
you
you
all.
very,
Yours
very much.
well, thank you for the
I'll
information.
get you the information.
Thank you, sir.
I think that, I recommend when I get it to you, I've forgotten his name, you ask him to come down and speak to you.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of things he can give you, and a lot what you're talking about. He gets a head start on when there's gonna be a grant.
Ah, that's
It's
good.
Federal and state, and every once in a while they get independent ones.
That would be excellent.
It's-
So he's-
And he can help in a lot of
He's a
ways.
good contact, yeah.
Yeah, he is, that's his job.
Yeah.
What's his name?
I forgot.
Oh, okay.
He's
It
going
was
to,
3 years
you'll get
ago.
that
Yep.
to Steve, and we'll get it
I
next
know I've
week.
got all the documentation, everything I sent it, and his name is in their address. I know you want to talk about your specific area, but I'd suggest if he could come down and talk to you.
Absolutely.
We had to do something, I think we had to start early. Well, you're easy, I did mine on weekday at night.
Mhm.
So you've got no problem. He, you know, typical government worker, he wants to do this only when he's on the
On
payroll.
paper, yes. They're not doing it today.
Any excuse to get out of the city, eh?
All
Well,
right,
thank you very
Nice to
much.
meet you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
See you, old man.
Hey, come on.
We're a couple weeks apart.
So I go after him all the time about being so old.
Is there anything else that anyone, right, okay, well, then I'll adjourn the meeting at,
So moved.
so move, second, and,
Aye.
Well,